Okay, education is the key. How long is the class? When you're taking a look at Univah Pro, the workflow, okay, when we're taking a look at the workflow between Univah Pro and traditional DCCs like Houdini, Blender, uh, even Unreal Engine, all of them really fit. They all fall into traditional DCCs. And now, when we start talking about education and what it is that a teacher and students would want in their classroom, this is where you really start to see that, okay, Univah really is the tool that is going to be in the future classrooms of every computer graphics course or motion graphics, 2D animation, real time. Univah Pro is going to be that tool. It's positioned to be that tool, and it's already here. How long is a class? When you go to university, I don't know if how things have changed these days, but back when I was in school, each period or each class, so you go to first period, which is English, second period, which is math, third period, which is, history. Each class is like what, 40 minutes, right? So 40 minutes, 50 minutes, maybe an hour. When you go to university and you have your first period, which is English, and your second period, which is 3D animation, how much time do you spend in that class? So you're spending, let's say, 60 minutes in each class in university. In 60 minutes, how much are you being taught? Can you do a render, a real-time, can you do a render that looks final quality in Maya in the 60 minutes that you're teaching? When you're working in Houdini, if you're teaching Houdini in classes, in 60 minutes, how much are you going to be able to teach them when it takes you 30 minutes just to set up a node graph, a complex node graph to do a fluid simulation? And this is why you see a lot of times on YouTube in the comment section, when you watch YouTube tutorials about Maya, about Houdini, about any of these softwares, what do you always see in the comment section? People are saying, oh my gosh, I learned more from this YouTube video than I did in university. Because you don't have enough time in your 1 hour class to teach something as complicated, as complex as, let's set up a very complicated node graph to do this fluid simulation. Let's create a cloud in Houdini. First, we have to set up this node. By the time you're teaching the complexity of it, just to set it up, the class is almost half over. The class is almost half over. So now we need to start thinking about, well, what kind of teaching tool does a teacher really benefit from? And what kind of teaching tool does a university student really benefit from? Do they benefit from having to bake and cache an animation, which takes up how much of your class time? How much of your class time in university do you want to spend baking and caching? And that's the question that everyone needs to ask themselves. You have just 1 hour to be in your class. And I want you to ask yourself, in that 1 hour that you have in your 3D animation class, how much of it do you want to spend messing around with node graphs, baking and caching? You let me know. How much time do you want to spend clicking render and waiting for Arnold to render something that's clear enough for you to see what your lights are doing? How much time do you want to spend in Redshift rendering? You don't have all day. You're in class, you're using class computers. How much time do you have to spend time rendering in Arnold and in Redshift? Real-time is the way. Real-time, Univah Pro answers all these questions. It's a solution to all these problems. We've already thought of all this. Because before I became an educator, I was once a student. I know what it's like to be a student. I was a student. So I understand the pain points. I know what the pain points are. And we have to stop pretending that these pain points don't exist. They exist. So Univah Pro is the solution to all of these problems that we have already thought about. The conflict in 3D education. You have a 50-minute class. In those 50 minutes, you need to be able to teach as much as you can to your students while making it also fun. Otherwise, the students won't engage. So between learning a difficult 3D software that is highly technical versus something that seems like a playful sandbox that gives you the same final output but instantly, you get to maximize your class time with Univah Pro, okay? And I want you guys to just take some time and look at this, because this is the truth. Let's not focus on hype. Let's just be practical and just use common sense. As a student, as a teacher, you have 50 minutes in your class period, and within that time, what are you teaching? What do you want to be teaching your students? Okay. Have student demand. Students will naturally gravitate toward tools that let them build portfolios faster. A student can complete 4 projects in Univah Pro in the time it takes to finish one slow rendered project in Maya. And this is not me saying this. This is coming straight from Gemini. This is Gemini assessing our work and telling you what can be possible. In the time it takes you to finish one very slow project in Maya, a student would have built an entire portfolio of renders. Okay, we can build an entire portfolio. Someone says, hey, show me your portfolio. You can build this scene in one day, build this in one day. This took me, I did this in 30 minutes. I did this for you live. I made this entire scene live in 30 minutes, and it would have taken me less time, but I was explaining it while I was doing it, so it took me 30 minutes. If I had to just do it without explaining it, I could have done it in 20 minutes. So a whole portfolio that you can send and get a job, you can be paid by a client showing them this portfolio. So whereas in Maya, you're rendering for forever to build this. Okay. So students are going to gravitate toward tools that helps them build their portfolios faster. And the definition of the industry standard will shift. Okay, and when we say cheap content, we don't mean cheap in the sense that it's less, it's a lesser quality, because again, that's what Univah is all about. Univah is about real time without the compromise. So when we can show people our renders and they have to squint and try and look really hard to tell if this was V-Ray or if this is real or if it's a 3D render, if they have to really think about it, we know we've succeeded, because you can tell automatically when something is bad quality. You don't have to think hard about it. But when you have to think, when we show people this and they have to think about it, and they have to like really look at it and assess it, and they have to like really struggle, that's how you know you've won. Okay, so the industry shift into things that are cheap in the sense that because we can do this faster now, that means what would have taken a freelancer hours to do, they can now produce this in 30 minutes and send it to the client, and that makes the client happier. Your client retention rate improves, because what you would have lost, the clients that you would have lost to overseas production companies like in India, right? Because the guys in India are producing renders for your clients cheaper. And that's another thing we have to address. If you're losing customers to India because the cost of living in India is cheaper, therefore they can charge much less than what you can charge in the US. How do you combat that? You can combat that when you're using something that is like Univah Pro, that can, now you can say to your client, well, the people in India, sure, they can charge less, but what is their time frame? If they're saying that it's going to take them 2 weeks to produce this, we can do it in 2 days. So guess who the client is going to choose? The guy who needs 2 weeks to produce this quality, or the person who can do it in 2 days or 30 minutes? Okay, so that's how you can combat that. So yeah, the industry shift. Now, the instructional efficiency, educators are already struggling with the time sink of traditional rendering. Univah Pro presents an educational tool that maximizes the learning experience. Wow. Wow. So if Univah Pro maintains its unique position of simplicity and real-time power, it absolutely has the potential to become a fundamental training tool in education, even if it initially acts as an accelerator alongside the existing industry software. Okay, so we want to make this clear. It doesn't need to come and like disrupt everything and change everything and get rid of old tools. It can be an accelerator, something to place alongside Maya. Okay.